rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Did you like that? I kind of... Yeah, anyway. So, we have a new Congress. Everybody got sworn in. And apparently J.D. Vance was kind of laughing at Kamala Harris as she was swearing in some of the new senators and stuff. But anyway... we also have the same speaker that we left with. That's right. Mike Johnson was reselected as Speaker of the House. He apparently had to go through two rounds. It was the second round, at least that's what I've heard, is that it was the second round that finally got him in. In the first round, there were only 3 Republicans that essentially voted for somebody else. And obviously the Democrats voted for Hakeem Jeffries, the moron. And apparently when they did the first round, those 3 kind of abstained, but then, they voted for somebody else. But then apparently they had some words, conversation, things of that nature. And, we ended up with getting Mike Johnson back in. Now, that being said, keep in mind that, Mike Johnson did have President Trump's backing. So let's hope and pray that everything works out the way that it should. Now, not saying that I don't have confidence in Donald Trump's picks. I just know that in his first administration, he listened to the wrong people. And so it's a little iffy on any of these people because, let's face it, none of them are really on board outside of a few. None are really on board with the idea of reigning in government and getting it back to its constitutional boundaries. Because they all, regardless of party, all have some sort of hooks into the pie. I mean, there'd be no other reason for them to pick that as a career when it's not supposed to be a career. So there's got to be some sort of a benefit to it. So anyway, whatever works. So a couple people have noticed that my background is changed. I decided to jump onto Grok and kind of play around. And, I ended up finally, after a bunch of trial and error, came up with a phraseology of what I wanted it to be and where I wanted it placed. And it finally spit out the right thing that I was looking for. The rest, I've got a bunch of others. And I need to figure out how to expand the back a little bit, just because of the fact that it's just, I think it's a good idea to have the logo in the back somewhere. So anyway, so we'll play with this. This one will stay up for a little while. And then we'll just play with some of the others. So thank you for noticing. I do appreciate that. Like I said, it is a Grok kind of a thing. God, I looked into getting one of these neon signs, special order, and let's just say that when I started typing what I wanted it to say, it jumped from $50 all the way up to almost 500, 10 times the size. So, we'll have to reconsider that. getting an actual live version rather than just an image. But anyway, so also too, one other thing that is a little frustrating with Grok is that even though I spelled everything correctly, the rendering of the image would come up with all kinds of different, shall we say, spellings. So, yeah. Anyway, All right, let me go ahead and get things kicked off. Oh, shoot, I just realized. Give me just a second, because I did not switch over the pledge. So hold on just a moment. Let me get this pledge switched over really quick to the next person in line. And tonight's version of the pledge will be performed by none other than Buddy Weiser over on Rumble. So if you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one like me, and make sure that you place your hand over your heart. Join along with Buddy Weiser as he recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I hereby pledge my allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which she stands, one nation under one God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all her citizens. So help me God.
All right, and thank you, of course, Buddy, for that wonderful Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to hear your version of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing it in your style, and then, of course, take that file, ship it off to me at fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans at AmericanPerspective.online, and I will get you put into the rotation. Now, a couple of questions here that came in. 3 Chevy says, can you manipulate an existing picture with Grok? Not to my knowledge. You basically have to type something in terms of what you want it to do, and then it will either create the image if you specify that it's an image, or create or search the web for the answer to your question. As far as that goes, I'm very, very basic with Grok. I have no idea realistically what I'm doing there. So anyway, so there's that. Let's see. Mark over on Facebook says, where's the 47? I've still got the 47 somewhere in here. I'll have to figure out, maybe put him, it'll get put up, I'm sure, again, coming up in the near future. So, of course, we also have, don't forget, this Monday, the 6th, is the certification of the vote process. I got a little bit of something on that here coming up in the program. So anyway, let's go ahead. Oh, I almost forgot, but that's okay. I can deal with it. So let's go ahead and talk about tonight's sponsor. Tonight's sponsor is theflagshirt.com. That is theflagshirt.com. All one word, theflagshirt.com. And they have wonderful patriotic clothing like what I'm wearing right now. I'm wearing, of course, this one is the, I think it's just the American Eagle one. The American Eagle cotton men's cotton polo. But that you can pick up at theflagshirt.com. There is also styles for women, children, as well as stuff made in the USA. There's some featured brands. They also have accessories, all decked out in the red, white, and blue. And right now they have some bestsellers. They have a on their banner. They're asking you to shop now for the Made in the USA bestsellers. There's T-shirts saying America 1776 on them, and for the women, they've got stars and bars and all kinds of fun things on the shirt there, just being imaged. But go to theflagshirt.com and check it all out. And as always, they have free shipping on orders of $75 or more. Now, that being said, I do understand not everybody wants to spend $75. Or maybe can't even really afford to spend $75 or more on products and shirts and things like that. So I'm going to help you out. All you need to do is go on to flagshirt.americanperspective.online. That's flagshirt.americanperspective.online. and you'll be presented with a coupon code that you can copy and paste into the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com and get $5 off your order. Once again, go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online to get yourself a coupon code that you can copy and paste into the promo box at checkout at theflagshirt.com and get yourself $5 off your order over there. Go to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized, like me. All right. So, all of that going on. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so starting off, first of all, as I said, we now have Speaker Mike Johnson, which is, again, like I said last night, either do it or don't. It doesn't matter. The point is that they got it done early. So they didn't have to go through, 15, 30, 500 rounds of voting in order to get their speaker. So now that they have the speaker, they can now get down to business. And trust me, time is of the essence. They need to get down to business. And given that, Buddy Weiser kind of made a comment in the beginning chat. He's like, don't criticize the coach before the team even takes the field, or something along those lines. But anyway, I tend to agree with him. I mean, we can't necessarily criticize Trump's choices when we don't really have any kind of background for his choices as of yet. I mean, we know a lot about a lot of these people, but as far as their performance in the offices, okay, in the offices, then we can't necessarily criticize him for his choices just yet. Monday morning quarterbacking is not something that I necessarily care to do. And so I'm going to be positively patient. Let's just put it that way. Positively patient for making that go the way that it goes. If something does come up where things get screwed up, then yeah, we can sit here and criticize. I mean, I'm certainly not one to not criticize when it is necessary. But beyond that, though, I think we need to just be patient. It's not January 20th yet. The man hasn't taken office. We haven't had anything, switch over as of yet. So let's just take a deep breath, breathe, relax. Let's try to make sure that we start off everything. I mean, again, I know we don't have a lot of time, but we need to take a big breath and at least try to understand the bigger picture. Because let's face it, nothing we say is really going to matter anyway. I mean, outside of the ballot box, at this point, we really don't have any control for the moment, unless, of course, you want to call all your senators and all that other stuff. Now, one thing I did happen to notice, which I thought was quite odd, considering the fact that we haven't even hit January 6th yet, was Hakeem Jeffries stood up and gave some sort of a, speech, comment to the press. I have no idea. But anyway, he stood up and he kind of said, hey, we don't have any election deniers. Yeah, sure you don't. It's not even January 6th yet, dude. So yeah, we'll just have to see. He said, we don't have any election deniers in our party. Yeah, sure you don't. Part of the reason why they probably don't have election deniers in their party is because they know that if there was an actual forensic audit, it would uncover all kinds of things that they have been doing. For an example, like we've been finding out over the last couple of years, illegal votes, illegal voters, and any number of all kinds of other shenanigans that go on. It just so happens that this time around, it appears that there was enough of a backlash and stand-upness from a lot of people that they were able to overcome any sort of shenanigans that might have happened. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, they lost. We won for now. And we've got, 2 years unencumbered to get our stuff done. And then we'll have to deal with it all over again in the midterms. So anyway, there is a bit of unsettling breaking news, though, that I have to bring forth, and it's kind of weird. I'll be honest with you. It's kind of weird to even talk about this, but Judge Juan Merchan has decided to be ballsy and take on the whole thing with all of this. He apparently is scheduled now a ruling in the Manhattan criminal case involving President-elect Donald Trump with regards to his supposedly illegally inflating his properties or some crazy crap like that, even though the banks got all their money back, even though the banks testified on Trump's behalf, even though the banks said, hey, guess what? You know, we're willing to work with this guy all over again. Well, they went ahead and he's going ahead and doing it. I personally thought that he might have, been more discretion is the better part of valor and backed out. But instead, he still left himself an out. And I'll get to that here in just a minute. But basically what he said is, okay, based on the early May Manhattan, the jury finding Trump, quote, guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records. Yeah. Since then, they've been going back and forth, legal maneuvering, so on and so forth. By the way, this is in red state for those of you who are on the audio portion of the program. But anyway, on Friday, which is today, Merchan indicated that he will hold a sentencing hearing next week. So he is going to have the sentencing hearing on January 10th, next Friday, just 10 days before Trump's inauguration on January 20th. And I honestly think this guy, all he's looking for is his mark in the history books. Because let's say that, this is a court proceeding that is unlike any other in America's 248 years. Anyway, he did leave himself an out, though. What would be that out? Well, that out is essentially that he said that he could have the sentencing be what's called an unconditional discharge. Now, here's how this works. This unconditional discharge basically says that he remains guilty, which again is what the left would love to see, but it requires no sentencing, meaning that no penalty for the quote unquote crime. However, because he would be sentenced with an unconditional discharge, he won't actually do like any time or anything along those lines. And he's already signaled this. It's like, why don't you just freaking do it instead of it? If you're going to say, sort of going to do it. Anyway, so what he did say, that he cannot determine Trump's sentence without hearing from Trump himself and others in the case. He signaled his plan to sentence him as an unconditional discharge, which means Trump avoids serious punishment, but the record of his conviction remains on his record. So basically what Merchan is essentially doing, in my mind, is he's basically saying, yeah, I'm going to sentence his ass. I'm not going to make him do anything, but I'm going to sentence his ass. And that puts it on the record. And that makes me the first in history to have tried a president and to have a president. Can you just imagine the history books? That's what he's thinking about. Trust me, I have a sneaking suspicion that provided that he comes out with the unconditional discharge, that this entire thing had nothing to do with whether or not Trump actually broke the law, whether or not there was any victims, whether or not, all of that. All they have wanted to do is be able to say convicted felon Trump. That's it. That's all they've wanted to do. And him signaling this is making me think that this guy, all he wants to do is make a name for himself. He wants to go down in history for this. Now, as of the time that the Red State was reporting, Trump had not yet responded, but we can expect a statement from his team soon, I'm sure. And whether or not he can appeal this, which 3 Chevy puts forth, yes, he actually can. At least as far as if he can, appeal it to the New York appeals court. Keep in mind, though, that New York appeals court has already issued a crappy result denying Trump a retrial of the E. Jean Carroll case and the defamation case. He already has been nailed now with that. So it will, I'm sure, if he appeals that, it's going to head up to the New York Supreme Court. But anyway, and yeah, Buddy Weiser points out it's kind of like a timed served verdict. Yeah. So if he comes, in my opinion, if he comes out with the unconditional discharge, he's just looking to make a name for himself. That's all. That's all Mershon is doing, is he's just looking to make a name for himself, get in the history books, get his name down, help his daughter, as 3 Chevy pointed out, I think, G pointed out that his daughter has been marketing the entire thing with t-shirts and all kinds of stuff, making all kinds of money off of this, and nobody has said a word. So yeah, if he does come out with unconditional discharge, my guess is that it's all has something to do with the fact that he wants to have it put down in the record books as Judge Juan Mershon being the one and only man who took on a president-elect, former president and president-elect, and got him convicted. That's my best guess. And I wouldn't put it past this guy, honestly, to not already go ahead and do that. Just these people, all they care about is whether or not they can make a name for themselves. That's essentially it. And Mark over on Facebook points out a correct question. What is the crime? Yeah, what is the crime? Nobody knows. Nobody still knows. I mean, even Bragg couldn't figure it out. It's like, again, the directions that were given to the jury was, hey, all you have to do is figure out it. Half of you have to figure out whether or not a crime had been committed. Forget about the fact whether there was a crime, what the crime was or any of that. Okay, it just needs to be that you think a crime was committed. That's it. We don't care about what it was or anything else. Yeah. Like I said, it's a bunch of crap. But hey, that's the world that we apparently live in today, especially under Democrat rule. Speaking of Democrat rule, I have no idea what this is, even remotely why Trump would do this. But apparently he is going to hold, or he is planning on holding, a victory rally before the inauguration. So he's scheduled it for the 19th. And he's calling it the Make America Great Again Victory Rally. And it's going to be held at Capital One Arena. And this is what his inauguration committee confirmed. Not yesterday, Wednesday. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I am not quite sure I quite understand the logic of this. He's already going to be inaugurated. Why would you necessarily have this kind of a rally right beforehand? Seems a little suspect to me. But hey, Trump's a showman. Trump likes to put on a good rally. And I'm sure that, yeah. So anyway, the point is that, though, that there are people who are concerned on Trump's safety with regards to this victory rally. Now, the large venue, this Capital One Arena, will accommodate around 20,000 spectators, according to CBS News. Okay. Turning Point founder Charlie Kirk said in a press release that we are incredibly honored that President Trump will deliver his first rally-style speech since the election at AmFest 2024 in Phoenix. This was already the largest multi-day event in the movement, and this is separate from the Capital One. But the point here is that he's having a party in front of his inauguration. It just, I don't know. It seems a little overdoing it, I think. I mean, if I were him, I would just walk into the inauguration and call it good. But then again, you know, I'm not necessarily the show person that Trump is. So, yeah. Anyway, some supporters apparently are, expressing joy and excitement for that rally. Some appear to be a little bit more weary about the safety aspects of the event, given the fact that Trump has already suffered 2 assassination attempts, as well as, of course, what we saw, you know, in Las Vegas with the Cybertruck explosion. So, yeah, I don't know. I just, like I said, I'm not exactly sure that this is necessarily a good idea. We'll see what happens, but I'm not exactly sure this is a good idea for him to do. And people all over X are saying the exact same thing, you know, that there's a lot of question about this. But anyway, I don't know. We'll just have to, we'll have to kind of see. I mean, this is, again, this particular one, it's going to happen on the 19th. So, yeah, we'll just have to kind of see what happens. But anyway, so yesterday I told you about, Liz Cheney and, Benny Thompson, or Benny, whatever his name is. Anyway, some of these people who were part of the J6 committee, getting the second highest civilian award from President Biden, with regards to this. Now, of course, this is, in my mind, as a reward for them towing the company line. And by the company line, I'm talking about the Democrats. Kind of interesting, though, that we haven't seen hint yet of a pardon from Biden. I'm sure it's in the works, but what's interesting, though, is that even though this happened, okay, the general consensus, apparently, at least according to a poll conducted by Rasmussen, the general consensus is that, right around 57% of the voters want the FBI to investigate her for evidence destruction and witness tampering. So, yeah. Anyway, that's well over half of the American voters, like I said, 57%. And this is according to a Rasmussen poll. And she, of course, returned to the headlines for her alleged criminal conduct, and of course for her, gaining this medal. So she's keeping her name in the spotlight for sure. But Cheney apparently was again caught contacting the star witness and ignoring witnesses who would debunk the false narrative that was running around. Barry Loudermilk, who is the chairman of the House Administration Subcommittee on Oversight, issued a report alleging that Cheney improperly conducted or coordinated the star witness in the committee's investigation. Now, keep in mind, that was Cassidy Hutchinson, who did that. Loudermilk found that Cheney contacted Hutchinson without her attorney's consent, which, of course, is unethical and potentially illegal as well, depending upon what's going on with that. Cheney dismissed the allegations as a political attack designed to undermine the committee's so-called findings. However, remember, They deleted more than, I think it was 2 terabytes of information, and several like text messages and just all kinds of stuff. They did all of this stuff. But anyway, so, yeah, we're just going to have to see what the heck is going on. And speaking of the January 6th committee, there's a question that was posted on the Daily Signal or proposed on the Daily Signal. What will the January 6th committee Democrats do when it's time to certify Trump's win? So I'm telling you, Monday is going to be a key day here, folks. Monday is going to be a key day for this whole thing. So here in the Daily Signal, House Democrats on the Select Committee that accused President-elect Donald Trump of inciting an insurrection on January 6th, which, by the way, those buttheads are still all the sycophantic twat waffle morons on X, and especially in other places, are all saying the exact same thing. But anyway, none of the individuals who were part of that committee are actually saying whether or not they will vote to certify Trump's victory next Monday. Yeah, we already know Jamie Raskin has talked about not doing the certification. But I seem to recall that when 2020 happened, the certification process was merely a procedural factor, and that if the states sent legally certified electoral votes by the governor, that you had to accept them. So it's, the only entertainment value out of this whole thing, provided that nothing occurs on January 6th, is going to be watching Kamala Harris have to certify the fact that she is not going to be the president. Just saying. So, anyway, so the Daily Signal apparently tried to contact the offices of the House Democratic leadership, as well as those members of the House Select Committee, to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol, to ask about the op-ed and whether they would vote to certify Trump's victory. 2 members, the chairman, Thompson, and Raskin, have previously voted against the certification of the electoral votes when Republicans won the race. On Thursday, President Joe Biden was scheduled to present the Presidential Citizens Medal to Thompson, and yeah, this is obviously this thing's a little back, but anyway, so yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Now, 3 Chevy asks, what happens if they refuse to certify? Well, my guess is that there will be some serious legal action that occurs, and yeah. So anyway, and according to G, apparently Harris blew the Pledge of Allegiance at today's events. Well, G, Harris is good at blowing. Sorry. Moving on. So yeah. So there was the op-ed in the Hill. I mentioned it because it bugs the shit out of me that these people don't really realize that they can't do anything. But anyway. So yeah, it's just, this is going to be quite curious, for all of this. So yeah, the op-ed itself added that, it basically added to its in the op-ed, they point out, the authors pointed out, or basically threw this out there. Counting the Electoral College votes is a matter uniquely assigned to Congress by the Constitution. Under well-settled law, this fact deprives the Supreme Court of a voice in the matter, because the rejection of the vote on constitutionally specified grounds is a non-reviewable political question. I'm not exactly sure that's the case. Because again, there is some question. There's plenty of questions with regards to this, because as you take a look at the Constitution, outside of a couple of instances, the Constitution clearly states that it's up to the states to deal with elections, outside of a couple of instances where the Congress actually calls it out. Like, for an example, the time and the place for the elections. And you can read that, by the way, in in Article 1 of the Constitution, where it talks about this. And so go ahead and take a look, but there's not a whole heck of a lot that is apparent from the phraseology in the Constitution outside of what would be considered a ceremonial process. Now, all of that being said, Congress does have, because as a part of it, you know that if a House of Representatives member and a Senate member both combine together to object to the electoral votes, although more often than not, that doesn't necessarily go anywhere. But I honestly, again, we're dealing in some very interesting areas because of the fact that, unfortunately, the founders didn't necessarily believe that elections were going to be blown this badly, that they were going to be in that the country itself was going to be in this kind of a situation, because, as I've said before on multiple occasions, for whatever reason, the founders seem to have this, I'm going to call it an irrational belief, that honor and integrity would reign supreme over a lot of what we have going on, which is unfortunate at best for all of this. So anyway, we're just going to have to kind of see where this goes, but yeah. Anyway, the good thing is, of course, that 2 other Democrats and 2 Republicans who were on the committee are no longer in Congress. So there you go. So yeah. Now, keep in mind, Thompson, back in 2005, did vote with 30 other House Democrats against certifying the re-election victory of President George W. Bush. Okay, specifically against accepting the electoral votes from Ohio. So, but anyway, they also have objected multiple times. This is part of the reason why I keep saying, that Hakeem Jeffries, when he stands up there and says, yeah, we don't have any election deniers. Well, yeah, the Democrats object every single time the Republicans win. So, yeah, anyway. Yeah, we'll just have to kind of see what the heck happened, or what the heck is going to happen. So the Daily Signal piece does say that it's highly unlikely the Democrats would have enough votes to overturn the 2024 election, utilizing the Electoral Count Act of 1887, which was 1887, which was a law that was in part a response to the 1876 stalemate between Republican Rutherford B. Hayes and Democrat Samuel Tilden, after 4 states, which were South Carolina, Florida, Louisiana, and Oregon, sent Congress competing sets of electoral votes. See, this is part of the reason why, when you hear the Democrats talk about this whole, there's no alternate slates of electors, that was the whole fake elector scheme that they tried to get Trump on. It's a whole bunch of malarkey, because alternate slates of electors have been sent to Congress since, here you go, 1876, at least. Okay. So anyway, the 1887 law that was put in effect to settle the matter moving forward required a joint session of Congress to count the Electoral College votes for each state, and stipulated that the vice president as presiding officer would certify the results. Under the law, if the objection to the count is declared in writing by a House member, signed by at least 1 senator, The joint session would temporarily adjourn, and both the House and the Senate would be required to debate the objection for 2 hours. The chambers would vote on the lawmakers' objection before reconvening in a joint session. After the 2020 election loss to Joe Biden, then President Donald Trump's lawyers argued that the law could be used to reject state electoral votes from states where they suspected fraud. There were 139 House Republicans who objected to the states that Biden won, and 8 Republican senators who supported those objections, forcing floor debates. The objections were easily defeated, however, and Biden was, of course, certified the winner. So, not a single senator, by the way, sponsored the House Democratic objections in January of 2017. So, again, this is all procedural, and this is all part and parcel. So again, do they have a case? Do they have enough votes to be able to overturn this? Probably not. They'll have to go and debate and everything else. And don't think that the Democrats won't try and slow everything down on January 6th, and have it carry into all kinds of other times. So, yeah. So there you go. Anyway, and there's been back and forth. There have been all kinds of stuff like, the election process in 1968, the presidential election where Republican Richard Nixon defeated Democrat Vice President Hubert Humphrey. Democrat in the House and another in the Senate objected to a faithless elector from North Carolina who decided to vote for independent candidate George Wallace instead of Nixon, who won the state. After the debate on the floor, the objection was defeated. In 1960, Democrat John F. Kennedy beat Nixon, then the vice president. The results in Hawaii were extremely close, and this is where I was talking about this. Hawaii were extremely close in its first U.S. presidential vote after becoming a state the year before, fewer than 200 votes in Hawaii actually separated the candidates. Now, the state's governor certified Nixon as the winner, but a state judge determined that Kennedy had won. So the state had 2 slates of electors. Though close nationally, the state's 3 electoral votes would not have made a difference in that case. As Democrats were prepared to make an objection, Nixon, as presiding officer in the joint session of Congress, called for unanimous consent to accept the Democratic slate of electors. Anyway, so, we'll just have to kind of, again, there is going to be all kinds of shenanigans, I'm sure, on January 6th. And we just got to be prepared, be patient, and kind of let things go the way that they're supposed to go. Okay, so a couple of things. One, administrative. Biden apparently has blocked the sale of U.S. steel to Japan's Nippon Steel. He did that this morning. He announced in a statement that he made the decision due to credible evidence that the purchase could threaten national security. We'll have to kind of see, but the Japanese corporation had offered to acquire U.S. steel for $14.9 billion. We'll have to see what the fallout is for that. But another thing that has occurred, which this hits in the FCC rules, and I'm actually kind of happy about this. Multiple reasons why, but Biden's net neutrality rules get laughed out of federal court. This in red state, as you can see here. So for those of you that don't quite understand what net neutrality is basically the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, which, by the way, was originally formed in order to monitor and manage the radio frequency spectrum, in our airwaves. That's its whole purpose, is to do that. And it also kind of sort of takes care of that with it when it comes to like the standard terrestrial radio, terrestrial television, et cetera, et cetera. The FCC does have certain controls over that. And net neutrality was something that Obama kind of kicked in. The idea here is that the FCC has control over all communications, not just radio waves, which, by the way, television is a radio wave. So is actually visible light, too, just in case from scientific fact, that's kind of how that goes. But he proposed the idea that the internet could then be controlled by the FCC. He did put it into law, this whole, and the whole idea of net neutrality was making it so that corporations couldn't, meaning ISPs in particular, couldn't favor one type of traffic over another. In this particular case, it was essentially more along the lines of censorship, with the censorship idea. Well, Donald Trump got rid of all those rules. His FCC person got rid of all those rules. Biden comes in, they tried to put them all back. And so now they've been challenged, or they were challenged in court, and the federal court basically said, yeah, not going to happen. Writing for a unanimous panel, Circuit Judge Richard Griffin, who was a George W. Bush appointee, ruled that the Federal Communications Commission had no legal authority to regulate internet broadband companies. He said the FCC lacks the statutory authority to impose its desired net neutrality policies through the telecommunications service provision of the Communications Act. So again, this is they're attempting to stop the overreach of somebody like the FCC. So the concept of net neutrality has its roots in the early days of the internet, where the ethos was one of openness and equality. The term was coined by a Columbia University law professor named Tim Wu in a 2003 paper titled Network Neutrality, Broadband Discrimination. He articulated the principle that internet service providers should treat all data on the internet the same, regardless of source, content, or destination. This idea was born out of the concern that without such a principle, internet service providers could favor certain content and services over others. Now, of course, the concept continued to be championed by Google, Facebook, and Netflix. The companies lobbied the FCC to create rules to prevent preferential treatment of content by the internet service providers. So in 2010, the FCC originally created the first proposals for net neutrality rules, stirring waves of public interest. The rules prompted street protests, torrents of email comments and threads, and violence against commissioners who opposed the rules. Well, his Obama's FCC imposed the rules in 2015. Trump's FCC chairman took them out, officially withdrawn in January of 2018. Biden's FCC reimposed the rule in April of this past year, and it was immediately hit with a court challenge. So there we go. And that's bringing us to, of course, to today. Now, obviously, a lot of this has to deal with the fact that the actual law for the FCC doesn't necessarily call out the internet as part of their statutory authority. Now, that being said, Nana of JJS points out, like I often do, the FCC itself is not in the Constitution. So, again, if you want these regulatory bodies, there's a reason why the founders gave us the opportunity to modify the Constitution. But if you want these regulatory bodies, you want the federal government to be a part of all of this, go through Article 5. There you go. Get it put together in Congress, 2/3 of both houses in Congress, put it in front of the states, 3/4 of the states, and then it becomes part of the Constitution. Otherwise, hands off. That's how things are supposed to work. According to the 10th Amendment, it isn't in the Constitution nor specifically prohibited by it to the states. It belongs to the states. There you go. I don't know how much more simple that could actually be, as far as the whole thing goes. But anyway, he was dealt a blow for it, which is actually pretty cool. And by the way, too, there was another blow. Now, this I didn't have in the show notes, but there was another blow. You know how all the lefty lunatic morons have been running around talking about how the Supreme Court, in particular, Justice Clarence Thomas, needs to be investigated because of possibly, presumably, allegedly, whatever other kind of adjective you want to throw in there, could potentially have been taking bribes. Yeah. Well, a judicial body rejects the requests to refer the Supreme Court justices to the Department of Justice. What two justices were they going to send? If they had, it would have been Ketanji Brown Jackson and, of course, the aforementioned Clarence Thomas. So apparently neither one is going to be referred to the U.S. Department of Justice, and this was the Judicial Conference of the United States. They said this yesterday on January 2nd, that it is not referring either one of those two individuals to the Department of Justice, rejecting complaints from a former government official and 2 U.S. senators. Russ Vought, who led the White House Office of Management and Budget during President-elect Donald Trump's administration and is set to lead the office again, filed the complaint against Ketanji Brown Jackson. He alleged that Jackson violated ethics rules by failing to disclose income that her husband generated as part of his medical malpractice work, and may have failed to report private funding for a celebration held after she was confirmed as a Supreme Court justice. Robert Conrad Jr., who was the secretary of the Judicial Conference, told Vought on Thursday that Jackson has filed amended financial disclosure statements that address the issues identified in your letter. With these amendments in place, we have no reason to believe that she has done anything other than follow the relevant reporting requirements. Same thing happened with Thomas. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island and Representative Hank Johnson of Georgia asked the conference to refer Thomas to the DOJ. The lawmakers said that Thomas should be investigated for not disclosing the sale of property to billionaire Harlan Crow. They claimed that he failed to report this transaction as part of an apparent pattern of non-compliance with disclosure requirements. This they wrote in 2023, referring to trips that Thomas took that were paid for by Crow, but were not disclosed. However, Conrad told Johnson on Thursday that the Judicial Conference has issued changes to its disclosure requirements and that Thomas has agreed to follow all of them. Quote, Justice Thomas has filed amended financial disclosure statements that address several issues identified in your letter. In addition, he has agreed to follow the relevant guidance issued to other federal judges, which would include the guidance mentioned above. We have no reason to believe he has done anything less. He added later in the letter, there is no longer any cognizable basis for acting upon your referral request. So, yeah, these guys are, these guys are, again, they're grasping at straws here. They are really grasping at straws. So, the Judicial Conference apparently is the federal court system's national policy-making body. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who is currently John Roberts, presides over the conference. Its members are the Chief Judge of each judicial circuit, Chief Judge of the Court of International Trade, and a district judge from each regional judicial circuit. So federal law does outline requirements for judges' financial disclosures. And in 2023, the Supreme Court justices adopted their first ever code of conduct amid increasing scrutiny of their finances. So this is going nowhere, which is pretty cool, to be honest with you. It really should be. I mean, again, the Article 3 outlines the Supreme Court as being part of the branches of government, and one cannot necessarily preside over the other outside of certain things that the Congress can do for that. So anyway, all right. So one last thing, there was a post on X, and this guy, I can't remember his name. Unfortunately, I didn't hang on to the post. And so being that X is very quick to update, I don't recall which exact one it was, but this gentleman showed a couple of graphs and was saying, oh yeah, we've got this fantastic economy. You know, Trump is gaining this wonderful economy, and so on and so forth. Well, I responded back to him and said, yeah, you know, your graphs are belying, or I should say just straight up lying about the situation, because of the fact that the regular average American is not feeling what your charts are attempting to display. And one of those factors I bring to you this evening when it comes to the economy. See, if the economy was going well, which, by the way, the city of Seattle is now the highest minimum wage across the United States at somewhere in the realm of $21 an hour. Okay. But here's the thing. Credit card default here. Whoops. Sorry. Hit the wrong button. Credit card default has apparently reached its highest level in 14 years. So credit card defaults in the United States are at their highest level since 2010, according to a report released this past Sunday. The default rates suggest that Americans' income cannot keep pace with their spending and bill paying amid high interest rates, post-pandemic inflation that remains among or above the targeted 2%. Card lenders wrote off $46 billion. Yes, that's billion with a B. 46 billion right there. There's the number. In seriously delinquent loans in the first 9 months of this year, which is a 50% increase over 2023, according to the Financial Times, which published this analysis citing industry data compiled by BankReg Data. Folks, numbers are the highest in 14 years, the report also says. Lenders write off delinquent debt often at 120 days past due when they conclude that the borrower won't or cannot pay off what is owed. So you sit here and you talk about the economy and how the economy is so great and the GDP is awesome and all of these other things, yet people are using more credit than ever before. The number of delinquent credit cards is higher than it's been since 2020. And yet our economy is just fantastic. Yeah, again. And according to Mark Zandi, who is the head of Moody's Analytics, he's basically saying that it's the bottom third of U.S. consumers that are tapped out. Their savings rate right now is 0. That's another factor that's involved here. Savings rate is out the window. This economy is not great. And come January 20th, I'm hoping that we can start to right the ship. All right, folks, that is it for me this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, please head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you find the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to make sure you get notified every time I go live. Also, too, don't forget to hit those thumbs up buttons and like buttons all the way across my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, and the aforementioned Rumble, so that more people can enjoy these videos. We will see you tomorrow night. Tomorrow is Saturday, so we'll see you tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.